High-interest debt doesn't feel like a crisis. It feels like a monthly payment. A manageable number, something that fits into the budget, something that gets paid each month without dramatically disrupting the financial picture. And that manageability, that feeling that the situation is under control, is what makes high-interest debt so structurally damaging over time. Because the damage isn't visible month to month, it's visible over years. And by the time it becomes visible, the compounding has already done most of its work. The mechanics of high-interest compounding work against the borrower in the same way compounding works for the investor, but in reverse. An investor's compounding builds on itself. Returns generate returns. The base grows. The returns grow on the larger base. High-interest debt compounds the same way. The balance generates interest. Unpaid interest is added to the balance. The larger balance generates more interest. The interest compounds on the larger balance. The direction is opposite. The mechanism is identical, which means the borrower carrying a high-interest balance is experiencing the most powerful financial force available, compounding, working against their position with the same relentlessness it works for the investor. The numbers make this concrete. A $5,000 credit card balance at 20% interest, carried with minimum payments only, doesn't cost $5,000. It costs significantly more, and it takes significantly longer to retire than most people realize when they take it on. The minimum payment covers roughly the interest accrued plus a small portion of principal, which means the principal declines slowly, while the interest continues compounding on a balance that barely moves. Years pass. Payments are made consistently, and the balance, despite those payments, remains stubbornly large. Because the payments are servicing the interest more than they're retiring the debt. This is how minimum payment structures work. They're designed, by the lender, to maximize the interest paid over the life of the balance. A minimum payment that keeps the borrower in debt for the longest possible period generates the most interest revenue for the lender, which is why minimum payments are set at the level that services the interest while retiring principal as slowly as possible, without pushing the borrower into default. It's not accidental. It's structural. The minimum payment is designed to produce maximum interest extraction from the borrower's position. The opportunity cost compounds the direct cost. Every dollar paid in high interest is a dollar not deployed elsewhere, not invested, not building a position, not compounding toward something. Just gone, transferred to the lender as the price of having borrowed at a high rate. And the opportunity cost of that dollar, what it would have compounded into over the same period, is the invisible cost of high-interest debt that never appears on any statement. The statement shows the interest paid. It doesn't show the wealth that interest payment prevented from being built. Make sure to subscribe. This is the kind of content that doesn't get made enough. Compounding is a neutral mechanism. It doesn't care which direction it's pointed. In an investment, compounding builds. Each period's return adds to the base. The base grows. The next period's return grows with it. In a high-interest debt position, compounding extracts. Each period's interest adds to the balance. The balance grows. The next period's interest grows with it. The same mathematical force, applied in opposite directions, with the same relentlessness in both. The specific behavior of compounding interest on debt has a property most borrowers don't fully internalize. The cost accelerates over time if the balance isn't being actively reduced. In the early months of carrying a balance, the interest cost is based on the original balance. It's real, it's ongoing, but it feels manageable. As months pass without significant reduction, the interest adds to the balance. The new balance generates more interest. The cost per month increases slightly. The borrower making the same minimum payment is covering less principal each month because more of the payment is going to the increased interest on the larger balance. The debt becomes harder to retire the longer it's carried, not easier. The acceleration effect is most visible when the math is run over a decade. Most people who carry credit card balances don't think about what that balance costs over 10 years. They think about the monthly payment. But the monthly payment is just the surface cost. The real cost is the sum of all interest paid over the entire period the balance is carried, plus the opportunity cost of what that capital could have compounded into elsewhere. Run that math on a moderate balance at a typical high interest rate over 10 years, and the number is almost always significantly larger than the original balance. Sometimes a multiple of it. The borrower borrowed $5,000. They paid back $15,000. The difference went to the lender, extracted from the borrower's position, month by month, compounding continuously for a decade. This is what makes high-interest debt a wealth extraction mechanism. Not because it takes everything at once, but because it takes something continuously. Every month, whether the borrower is paying attention or not, whether the economy is good or bad, whether the borrower's income has grown or not. The interest compounds against the position with the same consistency that a well-managed investment compounds for it. And the asymmetry between the wealth being extracted by the high-interest balance and the wealth that could be building if that capital were deployed differently is the real cost of carrying high-interest debt over time. Most people carrying high-interest balances don't think of themselves as paying a wealth tax, but structurally, that's what it is. A continuous extraction of capital from their position to someone else's. Compounding, month after month, in the background, while life continues normally and the monthly payment feels manageable. The crisis isn't visible, because it doesn't arrive as a crisis. It arrives as a statement at the end of a decade, showing how much was paid for the privilege of carrying a balance. The compounding that works against the high-interest debt holder can be interrupted. Not easily, not without trade-offs, but structurally, it can be stopped. And stopping it, even partially, changes the financial trajectory more significantly than most people realize when they're inside it. The first thing that changes the trajectory is understanding the actual cost. Not the monthly payment, the total cost over the life of the balance, including the compounding interest and the opportunity cost of capital deployed elsewhere. Most people don't run this math. They manage the monthly payment, not the total cost. And managing the monthly payment produces decisions optimized for short-term cash flow rather than long-term financial position. Running the actual math, the total interest paid over 3, 5, 10 years, produces a different emotional relationship with the debt. It makes the cost visible in a way the monthly statement obscures. And visible costs produce different decisions than invisible ones. The second thing that changes the trajectory is attacking the highest rate balance first. Not the smallest balance, the highest rate. The highest rate balance is extracting the most wealth per dollar of principal. Every dollar applied to that balance immediately reduces the rate of extraction. The mathematical case for prioritizing the highest rate is clear. The money saved in interest by eliminating the highest rate balance first exceeds the money saved by eliminating smaller balances first, regardless of how satisfying the psychological win of closing a smaller account feels.
Rate first, always, if the objective is minimizing total cost. The third thing that changes the trajectory is any reduction in the interest rate itself. Balance transfers, personal loans at lower rates, negotiating directly with the lender. A balance at 20% transferred to a product at 0% for an introductory period stops the compounding entirely during that period. Every dollar of payment goes directly to principal. No interest accumulates. The balance declines at the full payment amount, not at the payment amount minus interest. This is the most efficient form of debt reduction available when it's accessible. The interest rate reduction changes the mechanics entirely. The broader principle is simple. High-interest debt compounds against position. The only responses that change that are reduce the rate, increase the payment, or eliminate the balance. Everything else is managing the symptom without addressing the mechanism. And the mechanism, compounding interest on a carried balance, doesn't stop on its own. It doesn't get easier to manage with time. It gets harder. Because the compounding that makes long-term investing so powerful applies with equal force to the balance sitting on the credit card statement. Working for the investor, against the debt holder, with the same relentlessness, in opposite directions. If this reframed how you're thinking about it, subscribe. Like this if it landed.